So now that I've had about a day to play around with the new Attunement of Sky Dawnblade, I'm now going to show you guys the build that I've been so incredibly excited to try out and master, and am still working on and still trying to master. So this is going to be what I'm calling the Chaperone Sky Striker build for the Dawnblade Attunement of Sky, of course. So very quickly before we start, I just wanted to say that if you're curious about how I'm moving so fast or some of the movements that I'm doing in this video, in the gameplay, you can check out a video I posted yesterday talking about the movement on this class and how to manipulate it properly and the things you want to use. That video was meant to be somewhat of a pre-watch to this video here, which is going to focus solely on the build. So now let's get into it. So of course, this build is going to be focusing on using a very specific ability on the new Dawnblade Attunement of Sky, and that's Heat Rises, and we want to give that ability as much uptime as possible. Like, we want this as frequently and often in every single one of our games as possible. Quickly, just for reference, for those that aren't so familiar with this ability, with Heat Rises, you can consume your grenade energy to extend your glide time and very much improve your in-air accuracy. It's also worth mentioning that Dawnblade Attunement of Sky has an inherent ability to allow you to fire weapons, send Celestial Fire, your projectile melee ability, and throw grenades all while gliding, so you can hover and still, of course, interact in combat. Heat Rises also has an interaction with our glide ability that enables us to have pretty fast burst movement, or skating if you want to call it that, with our strafe glide, and it's nearly perfect in air accuracy from my experience, and that's very, very important for the build and why that ability is the focus of our build. We're going to be using Strafe Glide, as I mentioned, to allow our Dawnblade Super to move at speeds comparable to pre-patch Burst Glide Dawnblade. So basically, really insanely fast throughout the map, and of course move faster than Burst Glide when combined with the effects of Heat Rises. Of course, as I mentioned, Heat Rises is going to allow us to play in the air with very little penalty to our in-air accuracy. As far as I can tell, it's pretty much near perfect, so we can play vertically and in the air as much as possible with Heat Rises active, and we can actually extend the duration of that. It starts as 10 seconds when you consume your grenade, but you can actually extend the effects of Heat Rises by getting airborne kills, and that'll give you, of course, more time again with your airborne accuracy, with your vertical play, and with your fast movement combined with your strafe glide. So we're going to be pairing, of course, Heat Rises in this build with the Chaperone to give Chaperone that airborne accuracy and that vertical play that it can't get anywhere else. I understand this logic could be applied to any exotic weapon, as you can't put an Icarus mod on any of the exotic weapons, but I think that Chaperone gets one of the greatest potentials of all the exotic weapons in terms of lethal ability and what it can do and its versatility of any of the exotic weapons that we have in the sandbox. The Chaperone can get quick one-hit kills in the air while maintaining a pretty good gap vertically, where you're a bit safer from an opposing enemy, but again, you're still lethal, and with Roadborne active, you have far greater one-hit kill distance, allowing you to play more aggressively with the vertical space that you have while maintaining a good degree of safety and ability to bait out enemies. And you can even just utilize this in-air accuracy and Roadborne with the Warlock skating with Heat Rises active to quickly close the gap between enemies and chain the Chaperone headshots. And those Chaperone headshots in either case are going to keep Roadborne active and refresh or extend the effects of Heat Rises, so you continuously get that airborne ability. The Icarus Dash is a dodge type ability that is done in the air, and it's going to be used in our build as a way to quickly get back into cover or disengage from gunfights or engagements. Or, while Heat Rises is active, it can be incredibly evasive by dodging after each Chaperone shot or headshot in the air, so you're going to be able to close the gap with enemies, get a headshot, dodge away back into safety, or just maintain evasiveness before going for the next target and continuously chain that. Our speed with our Heat Rises glide is going to allow us to dip into our one-hit kill range with Chaperone, which is pretty generous usually, and then the Icarus dodge is going to allow us to immediately escape the enemy's one-hit kill range that we've somewhat dipped into with our Chaperone while trying to go for a kill, so it allows us again to just play as safely and evasively as possible. The Icarus Dash is also pretty excellent for playing playing defensively with the Chaperone, it allows you to make sure that you can maintain that gap between you and your opponent, especially if they're charging towards you, where it's harder for them to kill you, but again, you're still within your lethal range. The Celestial Fire melee is a really powerful melee ability. It has a really good amount of range. I haven't really seen too much of a cap. It goes pretty far, and it's a projectile melee, but it also has an AoE blast. It's 3 little individual blasts that have to hit a target, and this is really great because when you're dealing damage in the air, it gives you pretty much a surefire way to clean up a kill. And if you're using your primary, this helps you again just finish a kill quickly, but it actually performs really well as a follow-up to the Chaperone. If you happen to miss a headshot and hit a body shot, you can immediately just follow up with this melee, and the AoE attack should clean them up most of the time because you're going to be within that Chaperone range, which is perfectly fine for the Celestial Fire melee. Because our Strafe Glide's neutral behavior is pretty slow, you probably want to avoid using it without the effects of Heat Rises active. And because of Heat Rises and the many benefits it gives, including the way it affects our glide, the exotic armor piece that I've chosen that we're going to be using with this build is Starfire Protocol. Starfire Protocol gives us 2 grenades while using sticky grenades, but we won't be using those grenades in most cases for their traditional functionality. Essentially, we'll be giving up our grenade utility in general, in most cases I want to say, in exchange for just having more Heat Rises available, having 2 grenades to consume at nearly any point and maximum uptime for our ability Heat Rises. Lastly, we'll be using Empowering Rift because Starfire Protocol gives us the ability to actually refund our grenade energy pretty quickly just by dealing any damage while in our Empowering Rift. So to get a grenade back, it took, I want to say, roughly 3 hand cannon shots, and the damage we were dealing with our hand cannon didn't appear to matter. It was a pretty big portion per any sort of damage landed, it would seem like. So this is another excellent way to ensure that we're going to have the most uptime for our Heat Rises ability. Empowering Rift's also a cool way to extend our hand cannon range or Chaperone range just from the damage boost alone, so that's a little nice thing on the side. This isn't necessary. You can run Healing Rift if you see more merit in that, but for synergy with the build, I'm going to go ahead and say we're going to use Empowering Rift. In terms of weapons, I kind of already mentioned this, but I chose a hand cannon because it pairs really nicely with the Chaperone, that hand cannon shoddy combo. We get the best performance in the air because of its high DPS and the least individual shots to kill. But by that same logic, if you really wanted to and you want it to be cheeky, you could use a bow as well, so it's up to you. Of course, we are using Chaperone, like I said, for its high kill potential, and of course, maintaining that healthy gap where we can bait players in the air and still be a bit safe while maintaining our one-hit kill lethality. And with Roadborne, of course, we get to double down on that, allowing us to play very aggressively with our speed or our vertical space should we want to, while maintaining that safety and lethality. For our power weapon, I do recommend using a grenade launcher with proxy at or a rocket launcher because they're the most consistent weapons to be using above targets and in the air, making the most out of our vertical space. So for our armor stat splits, we're going to be using on this build 3 mobility, 5 resilience, 7 or 8 recovery, 7 or 8 discipline, 5 intellect, and 3 strength. So I kind of put this build together last minute, and I'm actually really satisfied with my stat splits. But I think that with the right armor, if I got just a little bit better armor, I could get both 8 recovery and 8 discipline, which would be really ideal to me. I'd even be willing to sacrifice a tier and another stat. But I mean, 5 intellect is actually proven to be pretty good. 3 strength isn't bad. Again, I would maybe opt for 5 strength, 3 intellect, but more on that in a second. So I use 3 mobility as I don't believe mobility is as important for this build since we do have Icarus Dash for our maneuverability and our evasiveness, and a lower base jump height allows us to actually move faster with our glide and Heat Rises. Not to mention that we are getting 1 invisible tier of mobility for our movement from traction, which I'm using on one of my armor pieces, which I'll discuss later, and we are getting 2 tiers of it from our hand cannon that I've chosen, which is a lightweight hand cannon. So if you're using these things, you're actually going to be getting around 6 mobility. So that's pretty good. I'm using 5 resilience because it counters Thorn, which is a very powerful hand cannon right now, and many other things, but Thorn mainly, and it punishes hand cannon 3-tap range with their damage drop off a little bit more. I use 7 or 8 recovery because this is the minimum required recovery to see noticeable returns from, in my opinion, so you want to always hit at least this value if you are investing in recovery, which to me is a very important stat. I use 7 or 8 Discipline for maximum grenade uptime within some reasonable resources without expelling all our resources on one stat. So with tier 8, which is what I'm using now, I get a grenade every 40 seconds, and of course we have 2 of them, ensuring that we always have heat rises available to be used. I use 5 intellect on this build for frequent Dawnblade uptime, so I would say that you would go with minimum 3 intellect. You don't really need 5, but there's a 43-second difference between tier 2 and tier 3 intellect, so I definitely think the minimum intellect you want to be aiming for is tier 3, and you don't necessarily need tier 5 like I have here. This is just how my armor came here. And with strength, I'm using tier 3 strength just as my kind of remaining stat. Honestly, I'd be okay with sacrificing some intellect in my build for strength just for more Chaperone follow-ups, and I think this melee is really powerful, but I'm not upset about either or though, and whichever you value is up to you and the armor that you get. So to break down the mods I use on my armor, on my helmet I'm using a Discipline mod in either precision weapon targeting or enhanced hand cannon targeting. Discipline mod obviously contributes to our tier 8 grenade cooldown for 40-second grenades, and targeting of course helps the consistency of our hand cannon and Chaperone. Precision weapon affects both, enhanced hand cannon doubles down on your hand cannon, so pick your poison. On our arms we have a Discipline mod and enhanced hand cannon loader or enhanced shotgun loader, depends on the element of arms that you have and what you value more. And I also use fastballs, so of course the Discipline mod's there for our grenades. Fastballs there in the rare case where I actually want to use a sticky nade, I can be as accurate and consistent as possible. And of course our loader there just for faster reload and more movement uptime. My chest piece, like I mentioned, is the Starfire Protocol with a Discipline mod, double hand cannon unflinching, or you could use hand cannon and large arms unflinching as well. So large arms and a hand cannon will affect both the Chaperone and your hand cannon, whereas double hand cannon unflinching, just stacking them, it's going to make it so you get even less flinch on your hand cannon. Personally, that's what I've been valuing more, but I think both are excellent. On my boots, once again, I have a Discipline mod and Shotgun Scavenger as well as Traction. Of course, the Shotgun Scavenger is used to get more ammo for my shotgun, my Chaperone from each special brick, and Traction, again, is just a preferred perk for me as I do play on controller and prefer that tighter turn radius, but I suggest it for anyone because it provides that invisible boost to mobility I talked about, gives you +5 visibly and +10 invisibly so that you can't see. So that's very, very valuable in my opinion. It's just a free tier of mobility, and I think that's actually stackable if for some reason you wouldn't want to use a scavenger. Finally, on my class item, I'm using a recovery mod to ensure that I'm hitting that tier 7 recovery that I'm personally currently using, and double pump action mods so that every time I get a Chaperone kill, I'm getting a big amount of super energy for that kill. So guys, that's my build. I don't want to keep you guys much longer. I'm incredibly excited about this build. This has me wanting to play Warlock all the time. I think it's one of the most synergistic, lethal, and highest skill ceiling builds out there right now. I'm really, really loving it. I'm enjoying mastering it, and I just want to keep getting better with it. It's a lot of fun to play, so hopefully you guys have fun with it as well. If you guys want to see more content like this, you can find me on Twitch, twitch.tv/Drewskys. I stream pretty frequently for long hours at a time, so if you want to say hi, come by and say hello. I appreciate that. And if you guys are interested in G Fuel products at all, my code Drewsky, which you can use at checkout, will save you 30% up until the 25th. So if you ever did want to try G Fuel products, or if you wanted to pick up some more, you can use my code, which saves you money, and of course supports me directly as a content creator. Again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.